Previously on Woodbrew.
Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another Woodbrew video. In today's video, Molly and I are working on a super exciting part of the camper, which is this overhead hatch. Now, I designed this on purpose to stick out over the cook area so that you can actually be underneath it and be shaded and protected from the elements. So it's a bit different design than some of the others, as it gets this hatch actually much further past the end of the trailer. So I'm really excited to see it coming together. So stick around for this video, because you're not going to miss how we put this thing together. We're starting this video out by working on the fenders. These have been some small little tasks that have sort of needed to be done this whole time, and I just haven't got around to it. So first things first is cutting a bunch of 22.5-degree angles. These are on a 45-degree angle, so by cutting them on a 22.5-degree angle each, they will match up when they meet each other in the middle. So yeah, just gonna go ahead and cut these out on the table saw and get to assembling these fenders. Now obviously you can tell that the fenders are wood, which, you know, you might comment that that is not very durable, and you would be right. However, we plan on lining the inside of these with some sort of metal or other type of lining in the future, but this is basically the inside structure of the fender well because these stick into the camper, which you'll see later as the camper progresses. But yeah, just gonna go ahead and glue all these together and use some staples to make sure they're nice and tight while the glue dries. Ow! Ow! Never had that happen before. It's got a wood cut.
What do you mean?
Like a paper cut, but a wood cut.
Ow.
Now the Harbor Freight trailer we are using has these brackets here, which are right in the way of the fender. They're used to fold the trailer up, which our trailer will never do. So I went ahead and removed those, and they don't really add any strength because we went ahead and bolted the entire frame together, and those are just, you know, in there because that's what the instruction says to do, but we went ahead and removed them so that we could fit in our fender wells. And you notice that these are definitely inside the living space, but we have a plan for that. Don't worry, you'll see that in some future videos of how we're going to work around that. And the last thing I just wanted to do was just get these in, get them fitted and looking right, and then I just went ahead and screwed a single screw into the bottom of them to hold them in place, because we're going to come back and do a lot of work to these later in the project. Well guys, our iFixit giveaway is coming to an end, so be sure to comment down below on this video because it's the last giveaway that we'll be doing on this camper series build with iFixit. And if you don't know who iFixit is, they are a company that's fighting for your right to repair, which is very important for Molly and I, and they do so by selling awesome products like this fix mat, which is a great way to organize parts and pieces of something that you're taking apart and putting back together, as well as awesome precision driver sets like this one, and many other fix kits that allow you to be able to repair things around your house. They are an amazing company doing awesome stuff. I highly recommend that you check the links in the description below, where you can also get a coupon code, get some money off of your next order. And I just wanted to say thank you iFixit for supporting our channel and all of our rights to repair. It is amazing work that y'all are doing over there, and we support you 1000%. So with that out of the way, let's get back to this camper build. Now, if you missed us assembling this in prior videos, I highly recommend you go back and check it out. We cut this out on our 5x5 Avid CNC machine, and we actually assembled the frame of the hatch in a prior video. And now I'm just going around and stapling all the parts together so they can't come apart. And I'm also going to start adding on all of the panels, which is going to make this thing really rigid and obviously waterproof. And the first one to go on is this bottom piece, which covers up the ends of the ribs of the hatch, as well as finishes off the entire bottom section, and is what is ultimately going to seal to the trailer as well. And for all of this, I'm just using some wood glue and a bunch of staples to hold it all together. So I'm just going to quickly run through this one, and then you'll see me moving on to the rest of the panels, which will cover the entire hatch section. As the glue is drying on that bottom section, I decided to switch gears and start flush trimming these doors, and as you'll see right there, I make a big boo-boo in the door because as I was flush trimming, I ran into the area that doesn't have any material there, which is where the door latch is going to go, and my router bit dove into it. Fortunately, I don't think this is going to matter because I'm pretty sure the latch is going to cover all that up, but if it doesn't, that's a problem we'll have to fix later on in this project. However, I wanted to get these flush trimmed because I haven't had a chance to actually see what these even look like on the trailer, and since in the last video we got all of the seals done for the inside of the door frames, it's nice that we can actually get this done and start seeing what this thing's actually going to start looking like, which is really exciting. And now for the moment of truth, does the door fit? Yes, of course it fits, and I was actually pleasantly surprised to see how well it fit. The reveal was nice and even around the door, and I think these are going to work out really well. Been very nervous about building our own doors, but so far, it's turning out really, really good. Pretty cool. Back over to the hatch, I'm quickly sanding some of the edges just to clean them up a little bit to make sure that the glue has a really smooth surface to adhere to, and then I'm going to make sure that all my angles are correct because I want this thing to be nice and tight, although towards the end I do make one little mistake, but it really doesn't matter. All of this stuff doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to ultimately be filling any sort of voids and epoxying and fiberglassing, so you're just basically never going to actually see or have an issue with any of the errors that you make in something like this, which is actually a pretty nice relief compared to doing fine furniture, which is what we often do, where there's basically no room for error. So yeah, this ended up going pretty darn well. I had to make sure that I lined everything up, and then I also drew lines across right here, you'll see, to show where all the ribs are so that I can come back through and use these staples. Now, I used way too many staples, like a ton of staples. I'm probably going to regret that when I have to go back and fill all of those holes. However, I wanted this thing to be mechanically fastened extremely well, so it doesn't just relying on the glue. And I actually forgot that one of our strut pieces broke. It had a void in the plywood and it was just weak. And so I had to quickly run back over to the CNC and cut out one of the ribs to add in before we moved on to the next panel. Now, if this interests you, I highly recommend you go back and check out the first video in this series if you haven't already, because we go into pretty great detail about designing this entire project and then setting up the cut files and using our CNC machine to cut all the parts. And this is actually only a 5x5 CNC machine cutting a full 5x8.5 camper. So, you know, it's a much smaller CNC than the actual camper is, yet because of the way we designed it, we were able to cut all of the parts out on this small CNC, which is really cool. And with that rib in place, we can go ahead and make the next panel on the hatch and get it glued into place. This is the panel that somehow or another I didn't get the angle just right on, so there's a little bit of a gap there, but again, all that's going to get filled. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't affect anything. And ultimately, I think this turned out really, really well. It's very rigid, and this plywood added so much strength to it. Now, after doing a little bit of test fitting, I realized that I actually made this part in the file incorrectly and it was too long, so it sticks out on the back of the camper too far. So I had to come up with a clever way of cutting it off because it was already installed. So I quickly drilled in these sort of supporting boards to hold the track of the track saw out over the edge, and that way I could run the track saw next to this next to the cabinet pieces, and it just barely fit in there to be able to cut this thing off. And I didn't cut all the way through those support pieces, so it kept everything in place. I thought about using many other things, but the track saw was the only one that had the narrow enough base to actually fit in there and make that cut. And just like that, it fits perfectly. This gap at the top is there on purpose to accept the hinge system, and this hinge system is called a hurricane hinge. It's this really cool, solid, I guess extruded aluminum sort of channel sort of thing. It's hard to explain, you'll see. But it's two pieces that slide together like this, and it creates this continuous hinge that is waterproof because it creates sort of a gutter on the backside, so water can't ever really go up and around and inside the hinge, and it works really well. It does require a little bit of trimming to get around the sides, and I probably should have just used literally any other thing, but I was impatient and I grabbed this multi-tool, and it did work. It wasn't horrible, but I had to I had to battle it, so probably better off using some other type of tool to cut this out, but it did work. And with those little relief cuts out of the way, we could slide it in place, and you can see there now it works perfectly. And then we wanted to dry fit everything again and make sure that we were on the right track, and it did look like it was working. So I went ahead and I added in just a few screws on both the top and the hatch just to make sure that this whole system was going to work before we screwed everything in. And you'll notice that this hinge is actually 1/4 of an inch offset on the hatch side, so I'm putting in 1/4 inch spacers. The reason it's like that is because that leaves room for a seal in there, so that hinge is basically, I guess, flush with the roof and then 1/4 inch higher than the roof on the back side. And then I just simply tested it out with a piece of scrap wood, and it seems to work. And I was also very happy at this point that it seemed like it was going to be plenty tall enough to stand under comfortably. And then it was just time to add in these gas struts, and just like that, it's kind of done. I think we need a little bit stronger ones though. Look at there, perfect. Take a peek ski in there. I designed it that way, you know, just barely clear that shelf over there. Now obviously all of this is a little bit temporary as the gas struts aren't the correct weight. We need a little bit stronger gas struts. Also, we have just the hinges in place with like 3 screws and no butyl tape, and so there's just a lot of stuff that we just wanted to mock up and make sure everything worked before we went through the finishing process of everything. So now that we have this mocked up and we can see that everything's working, in maybe the next video, we actually pretty much for sure in the next video we're going to be starting on doing some of the fiberglassing on the exterior, finishing up a lot of these panels, and getting ready for doing basically the final touches of getting this camper ready, which is very exciting, so you're not going to want to miss that. Don't forget to comment down below on this video to get entered in the iFixit giveaway, and I really hope you guys are enjoying this project, and we have so many awesome plans for this camper and potentially some future campers as well, so hope you guys are enjoying the content, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.